Recording. Welcome to another episode of the Rock Fantasy Files. And this is Stephen Keeler from rockfantasy.com. And we've got a really cool guest today, I think, that I'm so glad he gave us some of our time, is Ryan Roxie. And a lot of solo career. Also, a lot of people are going to know him. He's part of the Alice Cooper band right now. And how are you today, Ryan?
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Stephen. I'm doing good. I'm chilling out in Stockholm, Sweden right now. It's not New York City, as you might think, but I'm in my son's bedroom, which has become, during this whole pandemic, my recording studio, filming studio. I do my own podcast as well. That's the fancy mic that you see.
Good.
But I don't have any fancy black light posters.
And we're going to have to change that. I've got a classic Alice Cooper blacklight that I actually dug out for today. And
I see
my
that.
wife's little Alice Cooper teddy bear I bought at the show. I caught you with Alice a couple times in the last couple of years. I saw the Bethel Woods gig last summer when you were with Hailstorm. And then I saw the tour the year before when you guys were out with Deep Purple.
Right. I remember that show because it was the first time I'd been to Woodstock and was able to see all that history. It was really cool. We were able to go down right down there to where all the action was. And we got a firsthand look at what it looked like, what we imagined it would look like being up on stage in those days. But wasn't that show, if I remember correctly, was there a big storm that was going to happen, right? It almost didn't happen.
Probably. I mean, of course, summertime in the Northeast, we're getting thunderstorms a lot, and it might have been that day. My memory's a little hazy on it. I remember it being a pretty nice night in the end. Now, when you roll into Bethel Woods, do they actually, I know they used to do it they'd actually give you like a tour and they bring you to the old site. Do they actually show you around, bring you into the museum? They have a museum too? I wasn't sure.
We took some golf carts. We had a couple, I think, Nita Strauss, Tommy Henriksen, and myself, and maybe it was my guitar tech, Warren. We were able to take one of the golf carts, and they gave us a pretty good tour. They gave us all these little sort of stories that had happened that not the general public knew about, sort of like you realize just how friggin' dangerous that thing was, that whole event was just electrically, they were like completely, I think they were relying on basically a couple grounds, metal wires that were hit into the ground as sort of earthing all the power. So at any given moment, any of those exposed wires, which ended up getting exposed at one point during all the mud and rain, could have been a lot crazier than it was, but luckily it's historical now.
Yeah, if you look back into the history books on that show, the Grateful Dead were the ones that were getting zapped constantly. And if you look at, you don't hear anything about the Grateful Dead set on, in the movie or anything. You don't hear anything about it. I don't think any of that was ever. If it was recorded, they weren't happy with putting it out. So, well, anyhow.
Well, I remember back in the days. Let me just say, Stephen, I remember back in the days. I'm old school enough to remember having to always check my microphone before you touched it, because if you have your guitar, you're getting shocked, with a cord. But luckily, the last few years with Alice, of course, whenever I've started playing with Alice, we have wireless technology, and I don't know if people know that if anything's wireless, then you don't have that danger of getting shocked. But trust me, I grew up in the clubs, and I grew up sort of in the trenches of playing rock clubs and club tours. You'd always have to check your guitar. You'd touch your guitar and then kind of do that sort of check with the microphone to see if you're going to get shocked, because the worst thing you could do is go out on stage without checking, and the minute you sing, all of a sudden you're having stars in your eyes.
Get zapped. Since we're talking about playing the clubs, I mean, you're in Alice Cooper now. Let's review and let's rewind and go back. Ryan Roxie, how long have you been in the music business, and what got you going? And let's kind of, do we have time to go through your career a little bit? You've got an extensive career.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can do the fast forward version. We can do, I've been Ryan Roxie since I was like in 5th grade. I didn't really have a backup plan. I thought, my full last name was very long, very Polish, and Ryan Roxie didn't really seem to just scream marquee value. So I changed it at quite a young age to Ryan Roxie. I said, you know what? And when I first started, I grew up in the Bay Area outside of San Francisco.
Okay.
The bands that you're talking about, a lot of the Woodstock bands,
Of
sort
course.
of got famous up in the Bay Area, and I grew up in a really cool music scene. And then I moved down to Los Angeles, and I realized that there was a club called the Roxy, and I was spelling my name Roxy at that time. That's the only change I've made from my name ever since those early days is
Okay.
to Roxie. And luckily enough, I was able to play the Roxy Theater, which is down in Sunset Boulevard,
Yeah.
still there. I was able to play there plenty of times with a bunch of different bands. And over the years, I just sort of was in the trenches, always trying to get the next gig, always just, making, playing, singing, learning more guitar, trying to play with as many bands as possible so I could get as many, contacts. Because at the end of the day, it was not so much about how well you played or not. It was, did you have people that you could play with on a nightly basis and you could hang with, and that you showed up on time? That was like, people always ask me, what's the most important thing about being a professional musician? I say, well, the playing part is given, but one of the things that people never talk about is being on time. So if you want that gig, folks, go out there and be on time. Alice Cooper, to this day, never goes on late on stage. And I say, with Alice Cooper, when we golf, he teaches me how to golf. He taught me how to golf. And
Okay.
when he calls a golf time, a lobby time, if you're 5 minutes early, you're 5 minutes late. So be prompt.
That's good. So maybe we'll blast ahead a little bit. You played with some of the Guns N' Roses camp with
Yeah.
Slash.
Well, here's the thing. I met Gilby Clarke before he was in Guns N' Roses, and we played in a band, one of those bands I was telling you about that we played, the Roxy, and played a bunch of clubs in Los Angeles. That band was called Candy. And then that band sort of splintered off into two different versions, which was Kill for Thrills and a band called Electric Angels. Now, I was in the band Electric Angels, and we did the opposite thing of what most bands were doing in the 1980s. Instead of going to Los Angeles and finding fame and fortune, we got out of Los Angeles and moved to New York City and lived there. And oddly enough, we got signed by a record label that had passed on us in Los Angeles, and we just got lucky one night. It was a good show. I remember we were playing with the band Mother Love Bone, who became Pearl Jam, and another sort of glammy rock and roll band called Dogs D'Amour. We were opening up the show, and Atlantic Records came, liked what they saw, and I was able to, at least for a little while, live the New York dream. And then I got out of New York because the New York dream is friggin' expensive, and moved back to Los Angeles. And I actually hooked up with my buddy Gilby Clarke again. And this was after he had been in Guns N' Roses for a while. So he was doing a solo record called Pawn Shop Guitars. And I was able to join the Gilby Clarke solo project. And that was my first real taste at world touring. Electric Angels, we've done some van tours, we've done some skateboard tours, we've done some borrowed van tours, rent-a-car tours, whatever, any way we could get to the gig, basically. And that sort of showed me the U.S., but Gilby Clarke was able to show me rock and roll on a more international level. And, subsequently, that being with what I said a little bit earlier with contacts, that led me into being in Alice Cooper's sights, because Alice heard about us on stage with me and Gilby, and saw us one show and said, I like what I see. Maybe you can come down and try out for my band. And
you've been with Alice for how long now?
I've been playing guitar for Alice Cooper on and off since 1996.
Okay.
And the funniest thing was that it was just a 1-year tour. It's kind of like, it's that whole Gilligan's Island thing. It's like a 3-hour tour. I was promised maybe a little bit more than 3 hours. I was promised 1 year And Alice, even though I've taken certain years off over, all this time, Alice has never missed a year of touring. And he didn't even miss 2020 because I'll be honest with you, we were touring in Australia and New Zealand. We did a big Australia, New Zealand
Okay.
tour February of this year. And then all of a sudden, as you know, the world changed. So Alice has toured consistently every single year since '96. I've been lucky enough to be on a lot of those tours. And the tours that I didn't do, and the times that I took maybe a break here and there, I was able to play with some pretty cool artists and record some albums. You might know Slash's Snake Pit. There was
Yeah.
an album that we
Listening, I
recorded.
was listening out this morning on my morning walk because I did a little research on you and like, oh wow, you were in the Snake Pit, and I was listening to that this morning. Listening to a little of your solo work too.
Well, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. It's one of those albums, Slash's Snake Pit, that I did. I'm really proud of it. I wish more people would actually have been able to be exposed to that record. It was the second one, called Ain't Life Grand. And for those that are listening that play music themselves, there's a hell of a lot of music on there, because the musicianship on that level really, really inspired me to sort of up my game. Because, first off, you're playing with Slash, who's got one of the best riff makers around.
Yeah.
He'll just come up with these insane rock and roll riffs that, they're not metal, they're not pop, but they have elements of both, and it just ends up being real, nice blues rock, heavy guitar sort of riff. And so, and then we had Rod Jackson singing on that album, who was just an amazing vocalist. Johnny Park was playing bass, lights out. Matt Logg on the drums, who had played with Alanis Morissette at that point. He'd done a whole bunch of studio work. Teddy Zigzag, who was also in Guns N' Roses. So everybody was on their game. So luckily, Slash gave me he said, look, Roxie, I like the way we play off each other. I'm going to take the right side of the speakers, and you're going to have all the left side of the speaker. And I loved it. I think that's great, because I could write all my parts that would complement his. I even got a little tiny bar solo here and there thrown at me every once in a while, which was quite cool. The only thing he didn't tell me is that, Slash would have the right speaker, I'd have the left speaker, but Slash would also have the center and the below and the, because there's a lot of guitar on that album.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good album. I listened to it today. I mean, of course I heard it back in the day. We sold it at the record shop and sure. But cool. You guys recently just popped out a new Alice Cooper video too, I saw, entitled Don't Give Up.
Right.
And you guys did this all on your own in your own locations and kind of pieced it together, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the actual just the definite definition is. I guess it's called isolation videos, but it sounds kind of depressing. I just say, I'm in my son's room, because this is basically my son's room, and I'm recording all the time. I'm filming all the time. I'm podcasting all the time, but I get to play a lot of guitar in this room, and was sent the track and said, look, just while you're recording it, make sure that you have your iPhone on so we can get a couple angles on it. We got a guy that's going to make a video. They put it out, and everybody in the band was represented on that song. So pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I watched it today, and it's pretty like something that Alice, I think, just wanted to get out. It's kind of like that song about now. Like I said, it's depressing. We're in crazy times, and kind of like an uplifting video for him to do.
Yeah, I mean, Alice can always
don't give up.
He's always very topical. If you listen, always something in his lyrics and that's the cool thing about being able to write with Alice. I wrote two albums that I'm in particular that I'm very proud of, is The Eyes of Alice Cooper in 2003, 2004, and also the Dirty Diamonds album in around 2004, 2005. Those two albums for me were just very special time with the Alice Cooper band. The band was hitting on all cylinders. We were able to really record these garage type records, because he was coming off of A Brutal Planet and more of the Dragon Town, which was more drop tuning, a little bit heavier, a little bit more industrial. So he wanted to do a little bit of a throwback to like Love It to Death album. That's basically was the blueprint for the Eyes of Alice Cooper. He said, look, guys, I want to be a garage rock band right now. I want to make that type of garage rock band record. And
Yeah.
so we did. We actually recorded it all live and wrote a bunch of songs together, sitting in a room, which was always, I miss obviously right now these days, especially. But yeah, I thought those albums came out kind of lo-fi, but in a campy way. And Mudrock produced the album
Yeah.
Eyes of Alice Cooper, and he'd done, I think, Avengeful. Avengeful Seven, is that was the name of the band? That was this
Avenged Sevenfold is he work with? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Great. I know I'm going to get some sort of comments about
one of the big rock metal style bands of this day and age. Still, Avenged Sevenfold, I believe, and
there it is. All right, I thought it was Avengeful 7. See, I'm like Ben Folds 5. I don't know. Roxie 77. I'll get them all wrong. I'll get them all right.
I call it pandemic brain. I think we're all excused. We've been locked up. We're not living our normal lifestyles. I call it pandemic Alzheimer's. I'm a little older than you, though. I'm 59, so I think I'm old.
Yeah, not that much, man. Not that much. You can call it pandemic. I'm going to call it wine time, because in Stockholm right now it's a little bit more in the evening time. I know when we're taping this, it's a little earlier for you.
Yeah.
And right around this time, I'm thinking, ooh, a glass of red wine would be great. So I think my wife's going to bring one in any minute now. So then the interview.
That's great. So when I found out you were in Stockholm, Sweden, I was kind of like, wow. I pictured you as totally LA, and I'm like, what got you to Stockholm, Sweden?
I was actually married to a Swede before for many years. I have two children with that and with her, and we divorced obviously but I'm still in Sweden because I want to watch my kids grow up. I sort of was very, very happy to take some time right when we moved here, right around 2005, 2006 to 2012. I did not tour with Alice Cooper. It did kill me not to tour, but at the same time, I knew I was doing it for the right reasons. I was able to see my kids grow up during those really formative years.
Yes.
And I was happy I was able to do it. Then I was lucky enough to meet a girl from after we split up for a few years. I was lucky enough to meet a girl from Cape Town, South Africa. And now a girl from South Africa and a guy from California live in Stockholm, Sweden, and being able to watch my two Swede kids grow up. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Like a spy novel.
My store is a metal store, and when I think of Stockholm, Sweden, I think of all the Swedish death metal bands that are over there.
Yeah, man. Well, Norway especially is sort of like the dark metal and black metal. But Sweden they have quality metal, they have quality indie music, they have quality pop music, obviously. A lot of the pop variety. Straight ahead rock and roll. Like if you take a band like The Hives, for instance, just straight ahead guitar-driven rock. I love that type of honestly, it's been a pleasure to live here in Stockholm and in Sweden. I've been
the last concert I saw before all this went down, my last metal concert was at the strangest place ever in New York City. It was at the Apollo Theater.
All right.
And it was Opeth, I believe from Stockholm.
Yeah, no, I know Frederick, the guitar player from Opeth. They're good band.
And along with Graveyard, who are one of my newer favorite bands. They've been out a little while, but they're like that old style, like 70s and jamming, and they're 70s, from
they play Gibson SGs, and it's kind of a little bit early Ozzy, a little bit early Sabbath type of sound.
Yeah, it's like Cream and Sabbath and mixed in with, and
those bands together. Those are a good representation of northern and southern Sweden, because it's kind of the same as like this. I guess the metal scene was back when I was growing up in the 80s was the Bay Area scene. Bands like Metallica, a lot of cool Bay Area metal bands, but then you had other bands down in Los Angeles doing their own thing as well. So
Yeah.
that's the way Sweden is as well. Gothenburg and if you live in Sweden, you say Göteborg, but
Yeah.
Gothenburg itself, southern Sweden, has a lot of quality, great bands, and
Yeah.
so does up here in Stockholm, and even the farther up north you get, the cooler and sort of quirkier the bands get. It's a quite cool phenomenon.
What's Sweden like right now with the pandemic? Are you guys in the same boat as we are over here in New York? Is it like, are things open? Are things closed? And are a lot of
Yeah.
people sick? Or
Well, here's the thing. Sweden is one of the only countries, I think, in the world that didn't shut down. And they had this herd mentality from the very beginning. And
Hmm.
whether that's going to end up being the smart choice or in the long run, is it all going to even out? We won't know until the time, until a
Yes.
year or a year and a half or whenever. The thing is, they kept to this. They left it up to their citizens to sort of socially distance
Hmm.
themselves responsively. Um, I haven't seen as much craziness as I watch on the news from the States. But at the
Yeah.
same time, Sweden has always been a little bit kind of a quiet country. They kind of, keep to themselves. There's this thing called Jantelagen, don't think you're better than anybody else, kind of blend in. And so, like I said, it's one of those things where I think time will tell. I know that I personally have been doing my very best to sort of social distance and
Sure.
I mean, as playing in the Alice Cooper band for as many years as I have, at this point, I don't really need to go out to to bars and clubs. Luckily, I get that sort of I get all that out when I'm on tour. If it's a night
Yes.
out on tour, I can go out to club. When I'm here off tour, like I said, I want to be in this room. I want to be creating, and right now I don't obviously want to be going out to bars and stuff. I'll do my best to be
Mm.
social online, but yeah, it's a strange one, man. We shall see. The news is very they're optimistic, but very very pragmatic about it. They're like
Uh,
they don't want to say too much, and I
sure.
think yeah, and again, because the population, if you think about it, in Sweden, there's more people that live in the Los Angeles than live in the entire country of Sweden. All right,
Sure.
so Sweden's entire population is about 9 million. So perhaps what might work in Sweden might not work in other countries.
True.
So,
True.
so like all of a sudden, if we're the shining example, Sweden, of like how to deal with the pandemic, that might not have worked in larger countries and places with
Yeah. Yeah.
population. So I always keep that in mind, and
Of
fingers
course.
crossed, and knock on wood, and all that stuff. That this stuff does get sorted out sooner than later, because it is affecting our business. It's affecting my lifestyle. It's affecting so many musicians
Yeah.
that I know, their lifestyle. So but like I said, it's one of those times in history where we either sort of pivot, innovate, see the situation for what it is, and then try to do something that can make things better, or we just sit around and go doom and gloom. And I'm not one of those doom and gloom guys at all.
Yeah, it's kind of like I was talking with someone else earlier, and I think we're kind of in a reboot right now. Kind of like we're rebooting. We're home with our, I'm home. I'm a caregiver to my wife, and I'm home, and we adopted a little dog. Now my store's open, so I am going out a little bit more. I got a good mask, and I'm trying to social distance still, but
Yeah.
yeah, let's hope that by next year at this time, we can go see you out on stage with Alice Cooper again or
Yeah,
something.
of course, no doubt. That's always. Yeah, I would. Here's my whole point, and I tell this to everyone. I said I would rather be really pleasantly surprised, and we're working, and everything's back to normal. I'd rather be pleasantly surprised than shocked that we're not doing it, because I want to be prepared to be
Yeah,
able to do something else. And if that, whatever I'm preparing to do, because perhaps this being online, this sort of this type of communication and this type of platforming is going to be the future of our communication, at least for a little while,
Yeah.
with artists and supporters sort of working together. Let's figure out the best way to do that. I mean, I'm still cringing at the thought of doing a live stream, full on live stream concert. But at the same time, the more that this goes on, wouldn't that be a little bit better than no concert at all? So let's
I
try and
agree. I
innovate.
agree. And
Let's
we've
innovate.
seen some bands starting to do that. I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I've seen some too. And every time I watch him, there's just the whole thing like, well, where's the crowd? But you know what? Hey, maybe for the foreseeable future, there isn't going to be a crowd. But let's have the music. Let's have the creativity.
Yes.
You were talking about it being a reboot. It's also a reboot for creativity. It really is, because think of the last time that you just were able to sit back and have some time by yourself to reflect and put
Yeah.
in music that you haven't, because we get caught up in the minutia a lot of the times.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, I got to get this thing, I got to get that thing. Well, you know what, what's the thing that makes us happy? What's the thing that really gives us joy? And I've got to be honest with you, the other night I turned all the lights out except for these colored lights in the room, and I put on my headphones, I had my guitar with me, and I just started jamming to some old drum loops that I found on YouTube. And I was I came out of the room, I go, how long have I been in there, Bianca? And my wife goes, you've been in there for like 3 hours. I was like, that was amazing. That was so much fun.
You've got your solitude room. I got mine right now. We gotta, yeah. And a friend of mine actually is in a band over here. They're a Queen cover band called Almost Queen, and they're doing drive-in concerts now. They did one a couple weeks ago, and I said, man, if I would have known, I might have drove down. And they're playing over in Wilkes-Barre at the I forget what they call that arena now, but I'm sure you played there with Alice Cooper.
Oh yeah.
And Casey, well, it's I can't think of the name. Alzheimer's again. I got here, the pandemic. But anyhow, they're playing a drive-in concert, and that's something I guess is starting up around. I saw Doro Pesch from Germany, who I know.
She was doing something like that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, she did something.
The only reason why drive-in concerts probably won't work as well in Sweden is right now, especially because it's summertime. It's light pretty much the whole entire day.
That's right.
Up until the late time at night. So basically, the whole light show would be for nothing. And then when it gets to switch, in the wintertime, it's going to be cold and snowy. And I don't know how many people are going to want to be in their cars freezing to death just to watch some rock shows. But that being said, I find the idea great. I mean, a drive-up show, why not?
Maybe in Sweden you can only do them in the fall and spring where you're getting half dark and half. Yeah.
You better enjoy the 2 weeks of summer in Sweden, we always say. But I'll be honest with you, they have here in Sweden, they do have the most collectible American cars. There's a bunch of people that live maybe about an hour outside of Stockholm. It's called Västerås. That's the name of the city. And they collect, that whole community collects American classic cars. So, and they have a lot of these sort of shows and rallies, and you'll see them driving around, and you would think you were in the U.S. at a really cool time of the 1970s with all the cool old cars and
you still see that a lot in the States, especially out in Pennsylvania. I'll go out in Pennsylvania, and it seems like you go into it, maybe down by Allentown, you start seeing all these old cars, and they have the clubs and whatnot. And I go to a lot of dirt track races, and you'll go to the dirt track, I'm like, where are these cars coming from? And it's 70s muscle cars.
Pennsylvania has always been sort of one of our strongholds for the Alice Cooper band. I love playing nights off when we're on tour. We do a band called the Goon Squad, which is myself, Chuck Garrick, who plays bass, Tommy Hendrickson, who plays guitar, in the Alice Cooper band, as well as Glenn Sobel, who plays drums with Alice. And we have, on the off nights, we put this band together called the Goon Squad, and we'll just play a bunch of covers and some of our own material that we have, some of our own solo stuff. Plus, we'll play a couple Coop songs as well. And then we'll just go and we'll book a club. And it's
Awesome.
always in Pennsylvania. A lot of times it's Pittsburgh, where we end up in some club that, our buddy Paul Unger promotes and books, and then we'll just have the craziest night. And for some reason, whenever we break into Neil Young's Rockin' in a Free World, someone manages to take their top off. And it's not usually a male. It's always a female. It's really weirdest phenomenon. What is with Neil Young and Rockin' in a Free World that drives people to take their clothes off?
I don't know anything about that one. I've been around the rock and roll for a while. I was thinking more of like Rolling Stones or something like that.
Right, I'm telling you.
Crew or something,
You said your buddy played in a Queen cover band. And when we were in Australia, just like I was saying earlier, back in February, we played a stadium show opening up for Queen. It was
wow.
Remember the world way back when the Australian bushfires was like the #1 sort of problem that the world faced at that point?
You mean like earlier this year?
Yeah. This year.
Not 30 years ago. It feels like 30 years ago.
It seems like we were talking about that. Oh.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got to play a show where Queen was headlining. It was for a big fundraiser, and Alice Cooper supported Queen, and it was just one of those really special nights.
Yeah.
About 78,000 people at the Sydney Stadium, and it raised a lot of money for the bushfires. And then all of a sudden, the world shut down, and it seems like Mother Nature said, "Yeah, this is our reboot."
Yeah, I tell you. Yeah, the band I was talking about is almost Queen. As Randy, I can't think of his last name. It's played with Thin Lizzy and stuff. I'm sure if you met those guys, you'd know a few of them.
Right.
But yeah, they were doing the drive-in concert. But I met them they played the fairgrounds here in Middletown. And years ago, I actually met Alice Cooper at the fairgrounds. He played the Operation Rock and Roll tour. It was like Judas Priest and. Were you on that? No, was that before you were?
No, that was just
like
slightly before my time. Yeah,
that was like 91, I think. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I was probably playing with, at that point, Gilby Clarke on some sort of solo album tour, or maybe I was playing in Electric Angels that I mentioned briefly earlier, probably in a van tour, because we were based out of New York, but we would, that was the cool thing about living in New York City back in those days for sort of the size band we were, because we could drive 3 hours, north, or 3 or 4 hours north, we'd have a gig. We drive 3 hours south, we'd have a couple more gigs, and we just kept on working that East Coast. And that's how I basically, sawed my teeth playing the Pennsylvania club scene.
Nice.
When you said Wilkes-Barre, I was like, not only have I played there with Alice, but I played there with Electric Angels. I played there, a lot of times, in smaller bands as well.
And I'm not far from Wilkes-Barre either. I'm if I get on Route 80, I'm right off Route 80. My store is on Middletown, New York, off Route 84. And I'm if I get in the car and go at 70 mile an hour, I'm Wilkes-Barre in an hour about. It's great.
There you go.
For that, they have the amphitheater up there, and they have the arena. The arena's a little further for us. But,
well, trust me, when I was in Electric Angels, we didn't even drive past arenas at that point. It was all city streets.
That was sure. I was just saying our proximity with Wilkes-Barre. And Alice Cooper Pinball, we have from my store. My shop has about 33 pinball machines. We try to get all the rock and roll ones. And my wife's a big Alice Cooper fan too, and she says, "Oh, damn, we're getting that." We finally had that. What do you think? Are you a pinball fan? Did you ever get to play it?
I'm not a pinball wizard, but I'm a huge pinball fan. And I remember back in the day when I was playing with Gilby Clarke, he had one of those Guns N' Roses pinball machines.
Yes.
Yeah, and then a few years later, I was playing with Slash, and Slash not only had pinball machines, he had a whole game room. Like when you'd walk into his house, you'd take a left, and it was the game room, and he had about 30 or 40 pinball machines. Plus, he had some cool Pac-Man video or old school video games as well. And but the thing I remember about the Alice Cooper pinball machine was that we really wanted one on the road, but had just come out, and they was like, no, we're giving them, to this store and to this store. It's all just promotion right now.
Yeah.
And then we never saw it on the road because we really did. And then I think it was our tour manager said, no, we can't bring it on the road. It's too hard to travel and it's too hard to set up. But imagine how cool it would be to just have a pinball machine every single time we went there. It would be perfect to set up right in the sort of meet and greet, the green room area, so people could play it. But I got to play the game a couple times, but I wasn't able to master any of it. Are you pretty good at the Alice Cooper?
It's a good game, and it's really in depth. I don't think I've ever mastered it. I think I'm too busy to master any game, and I've got over 100 pinball machines in my collection.
Nice.
But if I would have known, when you guys played Bethel, I could have drove it up in the morning and sat it in your dressing room in the room for you guys to play. Maybe if it happens next time, I'll reach out to you.
Let's set that up as a goal. Next time that we're in that sort of neighborhood, we can set a little pinball drop off. See, I'm also into like other old school. The way that the tour usually works is that we play some old school games. Like golf. You can't get more old school than golf. So I golf in the morning, and then we play the rock show, which is a game in itself.
Well,
just trying to stay away from Alice Cooper's sword. And then at nighttime, when we're on the bus, we play poker. We play old school, 5 card stud, 7 card stud, 5 card draw. Texas.
I'm actually, our prop is a pinball machine today. That's what I got my laptop on.
Nicely done, man. Like I said, I dig your room, man. I love being here. It's very creative. I got a lot of musical instruments, but you seem to have all the toys.
We need some blacklight posters. I'll have to send some over to you.
Sounds good.
But anyhow, anything else you want to add? You do have some solo work. You just put out a new single recently that I was listening to, Hearts in Trouble.
Yeah, we just put out the newest single, Hearts in Trouble. It's been my goal because I feel that people for too long, most artists, they work so hard on their records, and then they get about a month to promote it because it's a new album and all songs come out at the same time. Well, I said from the very beginning that I was going to make a 10-song album and I was going to have 10 singles on it. So I said that I was going to be able to milk this for a while. So we put the album out a while ago with on vinyl and on CD, on the tangible form. But we would only release a single in the digital formats, whether it was Apple or Spotify or whatever. We would put them out one by one, and with each release we'd have a YouTube lyric video. So we've been able to do that with every single song. This is our 9th single release called Hearts in Trouble. It's on my official YouTube right now if you want to go check it out. It's just my YouTube channel, Ryan Roxie Official. And you can also, if you want to go pick up a tangible copy, because for me that's the best way to experience an album is to actually have the vinyl or have the CD, read the liner notes. And our record label really made some nice packaging for it. It's just called Ryan Roxie Imagine Your Reality. And if you just go to my ryanroxie.com, all the links are there for anything you need to know that's Roxie related. So yeah, if I was going to hype anything, I'd just say go to ryanroxie.com and send me a message and say, hey man, I heard about you, heard you on the show, and I'm ready to check out your world, and hopefully we'll be back out on the road real soon.
Excellent. And thank you for joining us today. And when I met you in person, you were so friendly. That's when I kind of reached out to you. You were walking around Bethel Woods and you came up, and I think there was someone mutually we knew there. And it's like, hey, and I took a picture with you.
Well, I'm glad that we finally got a chance to talk. And like I said, next time that we're in your neighborhood and you're bringing the pinball machine down, we'll have another chat. And by that time, hopefully you're not so huge that we can still have a chat and you don't go straight into Alice Cooper's dressing room.
No, and I guess we can wrap it up if you want to add anything else. What's your favorite Alice Cooper songs to play? And then we'll let you go.
Wow, my favorite AC songs. Well, you know what? I'm lucky enough that these guys that were in the original band, Glenn Buxton, Michael Bruce, Dennis Dunaway,
Sure.
Neil Smith, they and Alice, of course, they wrote such classic songs, and to this day they have these anthems, you know. So I'm lucky enough to start a lot of those types of anthems, whether it's, you know, No More Mr. Nice Guy,
Yeah.
or, you know, that first solo in I'm 18. But, you know, by far, when the end of the song, when you hear a school bell, and I get to open up with that,
Yeah.
school's out riff, and every hand in the audience goes up. That's a good way of saying that's a favorite song to play,
Yes.
because you know that you're just playing that song live at that moment, but you also know that you're playing that song for so many people's memories of the first
Oh,
time they heard that, and everyone's sort of reliving it at the same moment, their own personal experience with it. So it's quite cool. If I can write one or two of those in my career, I'll be really happy.
my Alice Cooper story a little bit. When I was a young kid in the 60s, I would listen to AM radio, and I really listened to a lot of soul. And I had a best friend, and his like sister had a boyfriend. Like, why are you listening to that garbage? Listen to these. He'd give me a couple 8 tracks. One was Alice Cooper, What School's Out On, and Black Sabbath, Paranoid. And look what happened. Now I got a record store, and I've been in the metal industry and rock and roll industry since not in 2020 still. So I
Well,
was back in the early 70s. So school's out. Yes, that's a good
that's a good
answer.
one, man. Well, hey, I grew up on AM radio, and that's back in when AM radio was not just talk radio. It was they were
Yeah.
playing dance music, they were playing soul music, they were playing funk music, but right next to all those tunes, they would play straight ahead rock and roll. So I'd
Yes.
listen
Yeah.
I'd listen to radio that played ABBA right next to AC/DC. So I thought that was
Yes.
kind of a cool upbringing.
Sounds like my iPod out in the backyard. Well, anyhow, it was great having you on the show today, and I think this will premiere on Friday. I'll give you a heads up,
Okay,
and
let me know.
and thanks
I'll
for
put it out
joining
there.
us, Rock Fantasy Files. If you like the video, please hit subscribe, hit like, make some comments, reach out to Ryan, buy some vinyl, or listen to some music by him, and Alice
Or
Cooper, of course.
Yeah, or just drop by. I mean, you're already on YouTube, so just drop by my official YouTube channel right now, which is Ryan Roxie Official. And if you can't get there, go to ryanroxie.com. That's it. I'll see you later, man. Thanks very much for having me on, Steven. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us.